I love research. I remember when I was in university, in my first degree, I did a wonderful piece of research on the mighty sparrow. I wrote a paper on the mighty sparrow and I presented it, and I was like a sparrow on top of a fence, I had my chest out and I was talking about this guy called the mighty sparrow. And I overheard two ladies in the corridor, not too long afterwards, talking about they have to go and see this man, and they were talking in excitement. They weren't in my class, they were in another class. So I heard the excitement, and one of them happened to say, Slinger Francisco. And I turned to the lady and I said, did you just say the mighty sparrow? She said, do you know him? I said, of course, he's from my country, and I was excited. She said, he's in a concert this weekend. I went to that concert, and there was the mighty sparrow on stage. This is in North America. So there weren't many West Indians in Florida at that time. This is 1979, 1980, I'm telling you about. And these women were going in a frenzy for the mighty sparrow. I actually saw a woman take off her underwear and belt it on stage. That's when I knew Sparrow Reach. That's when I understood why he sang some of his calypso. But I understood what research was all about, because in our society, to be an educator, you have to have research. You must understand what is happening from the ground up. You must understand the behavior of individuals. And I'll tell you this, calypso is one of my favorite forms of music. And I can tell you, I could call scores of calypsonians, but I always like to focus on Sparrow because I think he's the king of it all. Saltfish. Now this week is the vagina. I didn't want to put the professor in any kind of confusion here. I just want to ask her, what is the correlation between literature, calypso, soca, and the saltfish for the vagina? Have you found a relationship here?
Well, certainly there's a lot of addressing of woman's sexuality.
Behavior.
Yes.
Expression.
Behavior, expression, and how men respond to women's sexuality and how women perceive of their own sexuality is going to be different.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, my understanding of that very same calypso, saltfish, will be different from your understanding of it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You also have all of the references in calypso to cats, right?
Yes.
And
Pussycat.
yes, and mostly it's men singing about women, right? Afraid, 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 pussy bite me, right?
I'm afraid of that too.
This is the kind of thing, and so again, it's fascinating because this is how we learn about cultural norms, is through hearing and singing these songs. It's not necessarily in the classroom because we don't have that much sexual education in the classroom.
That's right. We don't have enough sexual education in the classroom from a young age, so we hear it in songs. And people complain about sometimes this programming. They say that, why are you teaching people about sex? It's supposed to be taught hidden in a box. Don't bring it out in the open. But that same child is listening to some reggae artist or calypsonian or even some rap artist now. They're very blunt about it. And it's happening. It's taking place in our society.
Absolutely. And as calypso has evolved, the range, actually calypso has always been very diverse. So you're talking about Sparrow. As you know, every single song almost that Sparrow has sung has, but in different ways, right? So the classic Gina Dinah is about prostitution and politics, right? Congo Man is about interracial sexuality, right? So there's, I know some people call some of the calypsos smutty calypsos and so on.
Well, that was the terminology that was used to ban calypsos from the airwaves. It's smut. Yes. So as long as it's smutty, we don't want it on the airwave. But I'll tell you, the king of that is not Sparrow.
No, absolutely no.
It's crazy. Crazy. He does take anything, any word, and change it up to a sexual meaning.
And as we have kind of the pussy and the pussycat songs, we also have the Nani songs, right? Coming from Chutney.
Yes,
so yes, they're very kind of similar.
But I think the Nani songs are degrading because I cherish my Nani, and my Nani is my grandmother.
Yes.
And that's what it means. To me, I don't like songs like that because I put her up on a pedestal. Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I think when you do that, it's degrading, but I understand why people like it. I'm not against those who like it, but I myself wouldn't sing something like that. I remember, Crazy took this thing called a fax machine and made it into a sex song. A fax machine. Crazy is great at that. And not only Crazy, but others. But it's reflection of us as a people. The East Indian culture also have the very same thing because there's something called the hardi when you're getting married. And when you go to that, guys are not allowed to go to that. Every sexual act they sang about, they take a bygone and make it into a phallic object, the penis,
Yes.
and they pretend they do certain things, and it's all part of the culture.
Yes, and the women have something similar as well, right? That the women have and the men cannot come to.
Yeah.
And the woman who might be the most esteemed woman in the community, but in that space, they're permitted to be
themselves, be a
and a
woman.
little bit more explicit about their own sexuality and probably making some fun of men as well.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do, because it's all part of what's supposed to happen. But it's also, they glorify the male phallic object. It's a glorification of it.
Yes.
The same
Again,
way,
that double way. So in one way, it's a way for women to express their sexual agency, but in some ways, it's reinforcing the power of men because they're glorifying the
yes,
phallic object.
they're glorifying it in that way. And it's all healthy, because it's us being ourselves, it's us being able to express ourselves and in song, music, literature. Again, I am fascinated about the literature part of it, but I have not found much reference things that are sexual about the Caribbean, except short stories that are written, some articles that are written on the newspaper, which is they're wonderful articles that really expresses the way women think, the way men think, the coming together of both of them. There's always a condemnation about sexual acts during Carnival. Have you found that in your research, that there's a high level of sexuality?
In literature?
Literature, behavior.
So I would say that...
Forget the music, we already dealing with
yes,
the music.
we talked about the
we know
music.
it's there.
Although I should say that the events we're having next weekend, the sexualities and the tent events, they wouldn't be Trinidadian if there wasn't a lime. So there is a lime on Saturday night from 4 to 8 p.m. and it's at Bohemia. So people
Bohemia is where?
Bohemia is in Woodbrook, and so people have the opportunity. If you look up sexualities in the tent on Facebook, they'll get all the information. And it's an opportunity for people to hang out informally, but also there'll be a lot of creative artists there as well. So it's very,
we love
very
a lime.
Trinidadian.
We love a lime.
Yes.
A lime is an expression also. Because a lime is where you go to gape, a lime is where you go to be the peacock,
Yes.
or there you flaunt yourself, and a lime is also to observe.
Absolutely.
And the ladies are there for the very same reason, just that they don't come out as openly as men to express themselves.
Yes, yes. In terms of the literature, this is where you see some differences amongst different parts of the Caribbean region. So you'll find that the Francophone literature, the literature in French,
Yes.
is sometimes much more explicit.
French literature is always more explicit.
Yes.
They describe things down to the nitty-gritty.
Oh, absolutely. So Daniel Leferrière, who's from Montreal, from Haiti, lives in Montreal now. Maurice Condé, who's from Guadeloupe. They're very explicit in their literature, which not always, even in their own countries, people liked. Maurice Condé wrote very explicitly about a young woman who was having sex with 3 different men.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't having sex with them at the same time. So 3 different boyfriends over the course of 10 years. But people in Guadeloupe were extremely upset that she was saying women were promiscuous and all of this. But she said this is how young women live. And so she was trying to portray the reality. Junot Diaz, who's now very popular in the United States, originally from the Dominican Republic, is writing from the men's perspective. And again, there are some people from the Caribbean who are saying, oh, he's reinforcing stereotypes because his character has a lot of sex with a lot of women. But there's an element of truth in stereotypes as well.
That's our problem. You write or you speak about the truth in society, the single moms. How do single moms come about? How these young 14-year-old girls are walking the street and they're pregnant? Somebody must have had sex with them. But when you talk about it, it's like, oh, you're reinforcing the stereotype. That's not supposed to be spoken about. But nobody dealing with the issue. They're not dealing with the issue because that may be a form of abuse. Because the underlying cause of that, if you're having sex with a 14-year-old, it's abuse, it's sexual abuse in some form or the other. And we as researchers, we as educators, we have to bring it up out. However you want to accept it, the population want to accept it, that's their way of doing things. I'm not forcing anything on you, but I want you to understand that the same thing, the literature does that. And literature, it's only the narrow-minded, myopic individual who wants to ban literature. You're right. If you don't like what I'm writing, don't read it.
Exactly.
It's the same way you open the newspaper, there's someone that you don't like, you don't read his whole article, that's fine, that's your choice. But literature is there to express. And there is always a level of truth in whatever is being written, because somebody's writing that.
Absolutely. And someone's resonating with it as they read it.
That's right.
Yes.
So you feel what is in the book, you feel what is in the language of the individual, the expression of the person, because you actually get into that. Same thing with music. You listen to certain calypso and you want to get up. They're just saying, no matter who you are, you hear Tassa drumming, your feet go like this. You start to tap your feet. Because it does that to you. It's part of It's part of your DNA. It's part of being a Caribbean man or Caribbean woman or someone from Africa or someone from India. That was all part of us in the past. We come here now, we are melting pot, we are people who are expressive. Let us express ourselves.
In every way.
That's
yes.
right.
And I'm hoping that more people will come to the literature, because just like people want to go and read 50 Shades of Grey, we have these kinds of texts in the Caribbean.
I don't know
as well.
why people think that's the best book written on sex.
I don't think it is at all. But I
no,
think
it isn't.
But we have a number of texts that, not in that way, but in different ways, are addressing Caribbean sexuality and are relevant to our context in the same way that our music is. So I want people to go out and support all of these events where they can hear a
Let's
lot
hear
of
about the
treaty
events again
writing.
very shortly.
So the events are happening on Friday, July 12th. And that's
July 12th, that's next week Friday.
Next week Friday at the Old Fire Station, 5 to 8 p.m.
5 to 8.
Open to the public. We'll be playing calypsos. We'll be reading from Trinidadian literature about sex. So that'll be great. Saturday, July 13th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. also at the Old Fire Station. And then the line is 4 to 8 p.m. at Bohemia in Woodbrook.
In Woodbrook.
Yes.
Thank you very much for being on this
Thank you for having me.
Lovely chatting with you. I like all the information, excited about it. I hope you got as much information as possible from this segment. It's all about you, it's all about education. Again, if you want to go and study a bit about sex and literature and how it pertains to Trinidad and Tobago culture, you can do that at UE. There's events next weekend, Friday and Saturday. Get involved. Don't just sit down and condemn. Don't just sit down and say, well, I learned through the television. Make an effort for you to step out there, be educated, find out from the professors, people who have done research. We have done research. Why? Because we want to pass that on. We don't take the knowledge and keep it in us, like Dr. King. I'm sure she wants to spread her information throughout the population, throughout the world. That's what we do. So remember that, folks. We want to share. Please share with us. We'll be right back on the